Hi, I'm Jill Schmolt, kindergarten teacher at Token Springs Elementary, and I'm here today to guide you through a quick review of phonemic awareness and also introduce you to some of your online Haggerty resources that you have access to and that are going to be really helpful to your PLCs next year. So let's go ahead and jump in, and I will share my screen. All right. Thanks for letting me get set up. It doesn't let me hit record until I do this first. All right. So again, we're going to be talking about a phonological awareness and also a preview of some of your Haggerty online resources. So I want to ground us back in the Scarborough reading rope. This is something that you have seen before, and we have talked about it in a lot of our PDs this year. And we're going to be living in the bottom portion of the reading rope, and this is the word recognition area. But just to remember that it takes language comprehension and it takes really skilled kids knowing how to like decode and encode words. We have to bring that all together to make skilled readers. So we're going to be focusing on this portion of the reading rope today. And just, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but what this is telling us is research has happened at Stanford University and lots of other researchers who've been really focusing on how kids learn to read have found that when we look at individual letter sounds and how they create words, how they blend, how kids blend and segment and bring those into words, that activates the left side of the brain. How a lot of us used to teach, and I'm talking about me, was whole letter word teaching where I wanted kids to memorize sight words or high frequency words just by sight. I remember like when we would do rainbow writing or, flashcards back in the day, that was activating the right side of the brain, which really isn't going to help kids in the long run. We want to activate the left side of the brain to really help them activate all the brain power they can to store those words into their high frequency word bank. And just a quick review about the difference, because we talk about sight words and high frequency words, and often it gets confusing what we're talking about. But really, we want all kids to have a lot of sight words. A high frequency word is only a word, if I look here, like and or in, words that happen all the time in the English language. Of course, we want kids to know those because they're going to be interacting with those words a lot. So they're called high frequency because they happen highly frequently in our reading and writing. But we want all words to become sight words because really that's how we become fluent readers. We have a lot of sight words in our bank. And when we really teach kids to focus on letter sound relationships and like looking within a word at all the phonemes, that is really how we're going to launch that for kids. So coming back to some definitions, phonological awareness is really looking at the word level. And how I like to think about that, it's when I'm saying a sentence and I'm having kids count how many words are in a sentence, like I might say, the dog is in the house. How many words is that? 6. This is talking about like, do words rhyme with other words? So we're thinking kind of big at the word level. When we get to phonemic awareness, that's where I'm looking at one word under a microscope, and I'm really thinking about all the sounds that that word makes. So that's the big difference between phonological awareness, which is words in a sentence, how words relate to other words. Phonemic awareness is one word kind of under a microscope, noticing all the sounds, all the syllables in that word. And then when we get to phonics, really all that means is we're adding print now. Phonological awareness and phonemic awareness can happen without any print. It's just sound. I've heard someone say you can do it with your eyes closed. It's what you hear. As soon as we bring in print, it is phonics. And here's another example. If we're thinking just of the word clock, this is a really great example. If I'm talking about phonological awareness, I know that clock is one word. I know that clock rhymes with a rock. I know that clock starts with a k sound. Phonemic awareness is where I'm really breaking it up into phonemes. So I might segment the word k, u, a, k, to hear all 4 sounds. I might also hear the word segmented and be able to build it into a word. Like I might say to my class, what word is this? K, u, a, k. And they would say clock. They're able to hear the segment and put it together to make a word. Phonics is when I show them the word and we either blend it or segment it into the sounds. This umbrella always helps me as I've been working really deeply with this concept this year personally. I think this graphic really helps me. We kind of think of the big umbrella as phonological awareness. When we get underneath the hood a little bit of the umbrella, we start looking at words, one word at a time. That's when it becomes phonemic awareness. So I'm going to practice a little bit with you. And I've been really studying the Heggerty manual, and I went through and I tried to find all the different examples that I'm about to show you in the book. And just rest assured, if you are teaching Heggerty every day, K1, you are going to hit everything that you need to hit for your kids. So in the beginning of the year in kindergarten, we do a lot of word awareness. So I might say a sentence and have the kids count the number of words in a sentence, like my shirt has stripes. My shirt has stripes. It's really simply, I want them to know that there are words that make up sentences. Then we get into rhyming. Do words rhyme? And then we also even produce rhymes. And Heggerty, you're going to notice not everything is going to rhyme, right? Run, fun, do they rhyme? Yeah, but there are going to be some non-examples. Swing, sweet, do they rhyme? No. And a lot of times they're going to have the same either onset sound or ending sound, and we want kids to hear if they actually rhyme. Do they have the same middle and end sound? And then also kids are going to build some rhyming words, and this is always really fun. And it's really playful in Heggerty because they do bring in some really fun nursery rhymes kind of from back in the day to help them with that rhyme. Moving on into the syllable level, this is still part of phonological awareness. And what kids will do is I will say a word and kids are going to blend that together. So I might say, I have a word with 3 syllables. Telephone. What's the word? Telephone. We could also segment a word into syllables. Say the word popsicle. How many syllables does it have? Popsicle. 3. You also will delete portions of the syllable. I might say pumpkin, pumpkin. Now say it again, but don't say pump. And what is it? And kids will say kin. Oops, pump, sorry. Gotta read my slides right. So now we're moving into phonemic awareness. And phonemic awareness kind of starts easy in the year and it gets a little more complex. We start with having kids just isolate the initial phoneme. And a lot of times we do this on their arms early in kindergarten. I might say the word farm, farm. What's the first sound? We want to make sure we say sound and not letter, because I don't want them to name the letters. This is phonemic awareness. I really want to focus them on sound. And you might have kids say F, and I will correct them and say, well, what's the sound? Right? We are going to do ending sounds, final phonemes. Say the word desk. What sound do you hear at the end? And you have to get really good at making the sounds. You want to make sure you say it nice and crisp. And I will show you on the resources, there's a way for you to hear and learn how to make the exact sounds. Because we don't want to say buh, we want to say buh, or tuh is t. So we want to get really good at saying crisp sounds. Medial phonemes is when, and it's really fun in kindergarten, we roller coaster our arms to really pop out that middle sound. So I might say the word cab, cab, ab, ah, ah. And we're also going to be blending and segmenting. And to me, the heart of what we do every day in Heggerty is the blending and segmenting, because it directly correlates to encoding and decoding that you want kids to do. So if I'm blending, I'm going to say each phoneme and have the kids tell me the word. I might say and the kids are going to say sock. And we can also segment the words. And a lot of times we get our choppers, and I will say the word shape, shape. All right, tell me the sound you hear. Sh, a, p, shape. So again, that's the heart of really what we want to do. Moving on, we can do some phoneme manipulation. So I will say a word and then add a new initial sound. So I might say whist. I'll say whist. Add twist. I might say a word and add a new final sound. So I might say lie, lie. Add t. And what do you get? Light. You can do phoneme manipulation where you delete initial sounds. So I'm going to say a word and I'm going to omit the initial sound. So I might say table, table. say it again, but without the t, and they would say able. Or I might say apple, say it again, but don't say ooh. And what do you have? App. And as you get further down, it's going to get more complex and you're going to see kids really having to think. And remember, that's good. That is activating that left portion of their brain. And you're going to do so much repeated practice that they do get pretty strong at this. If you do notice that there are some kids who are really having a hard time, this is always something that you can pull out and do real quick in a quick small group. All right. And finally, we're going to do some substitution. And that is when you say a word, but you're going to substitute a different sound. So I might say pace, pace, change the p to and what do you have? Race. And later in the year, they really do bring out the Conan boxes and chips, and that really does help kids to kind of anchor. You might not bring in letters yet because that's phonics, but it's going to anchor kids in really seeing the sounds in front of them and moving some things to make it a little more multisensory. And again, perfect thing to do for small group. And in small group, it's really a great idea to bring in some of the print, some of the magnetic letters to really make it even stronger, a stronger connection. So next, I wanted just to really remind you of some of the big research. Why are we doing all of this phonological awareness work? Well, the research really is strong, and it says it's a strong predictor of long-time reading and spelling success. Students with weak phonological skills will likely become poor readers. And it can predict literacy performances more accurately than variables such as intelligence, vocabulary knowledge, and socioeconomic status. So really, if we don't provide kids with strong phonological awareness and phonemic awareness training, we're really hampering their future ability to be strong readers and writers. So next, I want to show you some of the resources available to you on Heggerty. So I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to go right into our Heggerty resources. And you all gained access to it. There we go. Live television sometimes is fun. There we go. You were all given access to Heggerty online. So you should have your password ready to go. If you're having a hard time finding it, feel free to reach out to your instructional coach and they can help you or help you get another password if need be. So I'm going to go into my Heggerty resources and you will log in and launch into something called My Heggerty. So I'm already in. So I'm going to back out so you can see where I am. There we go. So your launch page is going to look like this, and it's going to have Launch My Heggerty. This is really what you want to launch to be able to pull up some of the really cool videos. And it reminds me a lot of Bridges because you're going to get your grade level, but you can always switch out if you want to see a grade level below or above you, especially if you have kids that maybe need something a little easier or a little harder. So you have access to the different curriculums. The on-demand PD, I have not accessed yet personally, but I think it would be a great way for you to practice some of the sounds. And I know that's a portion of this is to help you really make sure you're saying things crisp and how it should be pronounced. The digital curriculum, it's just basically what you would have in your Heggerty manual, but it's just going to be on the computer. Personally, I didn't find that super helpful, but if you ever are without a manual, you can totally go in and see what you would teach on a given day. The digital assessments I have not played around with, but it looks like something we might want to dive into with my PLC next year. This one is pretty cool. There are the daily lesson videos. So there's literally a lesson for each video, and you can watch it being taught. We're making the decision as a district to not have kids watch the videos. We've decided we think it's best for kids to interact with their teacher when they're doing this work. But it's a great way for you to see exactly what it should look like with the hand motions for each lesson. And it's also, for me, it was a great way for me to play around with how is she pronouncing the sounds correctly. This is new, decodable books. So there's some books that really highlight some of the skills that you're working on with Heggerty, and you are able to project these right on your smartboard. And this learning library, I have not really dug deep into again, but this is something your PLC certainly can look at. The one thing I did want to highlight for everyone today was the assessment portion of Heggerty Online. And this is something that I think is going to be really, really helpful next year for PLCs as we're looking for some data, some, ongoing formative assessments to see where our kids are at. So you'll see there are some progress monitoring assessments, and I'm just going to pull open the kindergarten assessment just so you can see what it's like. And the nice thing about these assessments is, let's see here, teacher, here we go. And unfortunately, I think you have to do this every time. You have to just quick add in your information. And I'm just going to show you, there are 3 different forms and they all ask the same task, but with different words and sentences. So I'm just going to pull open Form A. And none of these assessments are going to be mandatory by any stretch, but I feel like they're really helpful, especially if your PLC next year is going to be wanting to be thinking about small groups with Heggerty and phonemic awareness and just where your kids are at, because it is whole group. And, when I was doing it this year, I was trying my best to always kind of see who was performing and like who needed a little bit of help, but this will really help you isolate one kid at a time. So this is an assessment. You can see you don't need anything. You just need this form and a kid because it's all oral. There's no print involved. And it tells you literally what to say. And it also goes into every section of Heggerty. So you may want to do the whole thing. You may just pick like, hey, I want to see how my kids are doing with segmenting. Hey, I want to see how my kids are like popping out the middle vowel sound, especially like short vowels in kindergarten. That's really important information for us to need to know. So there are 3 different forms, and this might be something that you and your PLC really, really want to try out next year. By all means, please do. I'm going to go back to our screen here. All right. And again, another resource in your building, I would say your instructional coach too can really help you dive into some of these resources. And as your PLC is looking for some ways to monitor kids and their growth for phonemic awareness. So I just want to leave you with some quotes that I really found important to me. And David Kilpatrick is, I would say, like one of the biggest gurus for phonological awareness and phonemic awareness right now. And I've just finished reading one of his books, and it just really brought home how important this work is. And it says the most common source of reading difficulties is poor phonemic awareness. And it's stark. And I just think of, I've been a teacher for 26 years, and just in the last few years, I'm starting to really realize how important this true foundational skill is. Early training of phonological awareness in kindergarten and first grade prevents many reading difficulties from happening. And I think how exciting that we're going to have a universal curriculum really to hone in on this skill and what that's going to do for all of our readers and writers in some prairie for our primary kiddos. And finally, I'll leave you with this. Phonological and phonemic awareness is the foundation upon which all other layers of literacy are built. And unless it is solid, the other layers will most definitely suffer, and the student will struggle to read. Phonemic awareness is one of the strongest indicators of future success in learning to read. I've had so much fun teaching phonemic awareness this year, and I can't wait to really launch it again next year. And I really hope you find it as enjoyable as I am. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or your instructional coach. And I can't wait to continue this learning with you next year. Have a great summer.